First of all, I want to thank Pam for coming. This is Pam Ward-Carr, and she's going to talk to us about the pet peace of mind.
Thank you, Maureen, for inviting me to come today. I have never spoke before about this, so I like to keep things a little casual. I don't like to stand behind this and feel like I'm preaching about something. So I thank all three of you ladies for coming. And there's some other people, I see people walking around.
Yeah, they're heading into the library.
Okay, okay.
They have story hour. Right,
oh, they have story hour.
For kids.
Okay. I do have another woman that's coming. She is running just a little bit late, but she's a current volunteer of mine in this program, and I will introduce her when she gets here. So thank you all for coming. As Maureen said, my name is Pam Carr. I just go by Pam Carr. You know, that hyphenating thing. You know, I thought it was a good idea. It's probably still a good idea because of identity theft. No one wants, you know, 2 and 3 names, but gosh, it's a pain in the butt to introduce. So I am the volunteer coordinator for ProMedica Hospice. Our office is out of Rockford, and we used to be Heartland Hospice. So if you are familiar with Heartland Hospice, we cover Rock and Greene counties here in Wisconsin. And we have for many, many years. We're in many different facilities. And this program became something very important to me during COVID. When COVID hit, of course, volunteers were kind of put on the back burner as far as visiting hospice patients. And my administrator at the time said, we really would like to keep you working. And so maybe this is a program that you could look into and see if you can get up and running. And so I went to the national organization. Hi there, welcome. You might want to sign in there on the computer. We just started, so I suspect a few people will trail in, sorry. And so I incepted this program during COVID because I thought that it would be a great way for volunteers to sort of help patients from afar. And it's really important to me, and it's really personal for me actually, that we value our pets as part of our family. And so what I'd like to kind of give you first is an overview of what Pet Peace of Mind is. First of all, do any of you know what this program is and what it's about? Did you look it up ahead of time or? No? Good. That gives me something to do. Hi there. Sure, have a seat.
Wonderful.
My name is Pam. I'm with ProMedica Hospice. So my name is Pam, and I'm with ProMedica Hospice, formerly Heartland.
Formerly what?
Heartland Hospice.
Heartland. They're located.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so we're out of Rockford, and we cover this area. So we're going to talk about this program that we have today that you might be interested in. Thank you for coming. So Pet Peace of Mind is a national organization. It was founded by a woman named Diane McGill about 10 years ago. And it's a formal way of helping patients keep their pets with them through our volunteers. And so how that works is volunteers would be formally trained to take care of the patient's pets. And it might seem simple enough, just feed them water and food and, you know, pet them and take them for walks. But there's always other things that have to be done with pets, taking them to the veterinarian, taking them for a grooming appointment, you know, discussing maybe with the family what their plans are after their loved one passes and they're left with pets. Do any of you have pets? Don't we all think that pets are part of our family?
Oh, yeah.
And so
Yeah.
the harder question, you know, might be to you is, do you even know what you would do with your pet if you were to come, you know, be diagnosed with a terminal illness?
I actually have them in my will.
That's
I've already
wonderful.
taken care of that
That's good.
because I didn't want to have anything happen
Mhm.
I'm hoping everything goes through because it's legal. It's legal. I have friends
Mhm.
and stuff, but I'm just hoping that I outlive them.
Of
Let's
course.
just hope that I live. That's all I care about right now.
Of course. And statistically, we do, right?
Right, but
But you just never
there's
know,
no.
right? And I know it's a difficult question to have an answer to, but I just want you to sort of ponder that while we, go through this. So the big picture with Pet Peace of Mind is that it provides a formal process, like I said. Up until the time we incepted Pet Peace of Mind in our hospice, many nurses that we have on staff were just either adopting the pets themselves or finding a friend, that could take the cat or take the dog, and then the dog would get transferred to another staff member or some other person. So what Pet Peace of Mind does is offer a formal process for that, okay? Combining this program with our hospice program, it gives our patients the full circle quality of care. A lot of times our patients are either so ill or they've been tending to their own, decline that they've had no time to care for their pets. And so oftentimes we find that their pets are late on their vaccinations. There may be issues with their pets that, one of our volunteers could have easily helped out with that, taken to the vet, made sure that the exam went through or the medicines were got, picked up the medicines, maybe even helped administer. It just depends on the comfort level, of course. We'll get into that later. But it just gives a well-rounded, comfort of care to the patients and their families. This little thing is, So it's the goal, is to provide our patients with the assurance that we understand the role of their pet in contributing to their emotional and spiritual well-being. Gosh, we all know that our pets give us so much unconditional love and emotion. I just got a little kitty that walked into my life. All three of my cats, well, many of my cats, all came to me from just walk-ups or pets or, feral cats. I never, ever have purchased a cat. They walk up, they pick me, and so this just happened to me weeks ago. And now I have this kitty. And before I even said to my husband, I said, are we keeping this cat? Because within days, I will be attached to this cat. So I called a couple of friends that I thought would, take the cat. Nope, we're not ready for that. Nope, we're not doing that. So that's when I decided, okay, I'm keeping the cat. And within days, I was like, cat's not going anywhere now. And so that cat gives me a lot of joy. It's just a little kitty, but anyway. So one of the purposes of this program is to recognize and actively support keeping the patients and their pets together during the time on hospice. This program does not advocate at all at any time for euthanasia, okay? Unless the pet is so sick and the patient has not, just doesn't even know, really. But what we try to do in this program is to make sure that the pet is well cared for, kept healthy, in other words, to stay with the patient. We never come into the patient's home and say, oh yeah, it's time for you and the pet to separate. That's not what this program is part of, okay? The human and animal bond. Pets provide a significant source of unconditional love and acceptance for owners. Gosh, we all know that already. I mean, it's kind of a simplistic thing, but when you think about it, your kids grow up and they leave, and here you are, your pet's still with you. They don't get to leave, So that really goes without explaining. Pets provide stability, routine, and a sense of normalcy during life transitions. During the time that the patient is ill, that pet is there every day, consistently, always providing love and always needing from that patient. And a lot of our patients on hospice find in the very end of their life that they're not needed anymore. They're realizing that, their terminal illness is taking hold. And so them needing their pet and their pet needing them is very important to them. And that is part of the reason why we want the pets to remain, with the patient. My mother-in-law is 84 years old, and she has 3 children currently. One of them passed a couple of years ago. She lives behind me in a house that my husband and I own. And she has a dog, Casey, that is her everything. Now, all 3 of the kids, they're all married, we all come over to visit, but that dog, if something happens to that dog, that woman is going to decline. We already know, she knows it. And so those pets provide something for that patient that is really unmatchable, really, with people. Pets also provide a sense of responsibility and purpose outside of their self. When my mother-in-law can't get up, she still gets up to feed that dog. I mean, our patients, it's a lot more difficult for them. And so this is where a volunteer like yourself would come in, coming once, every other day to maybe towards the very end, help feed and just make sure that the pet's got fresh water, this kind of thing. Pets are often symbols for owners. They may represent relationships, past or present. They might represent children of childless couples or empty nest adults. That would be me and my husband. We have 3 cats, no children. They may be the only social outlet or interaction a patient or family member has. If any of you have ever had a parent or a loved one on hospice or in a nursing home or in skilled care or somewhere other than your home, you understand how hard life gets when you try to go and visit your parent. You don't get to see them as often, and they feel the same way. They don't have visitors, not regular social interaction, and so the pet provides that for them. This is how this program helps. They help manage the loss of control that occurs with hospice. So many patients lose all of their sense of worth and their sense of what life was really meaning to them when they know that they're going to pass. And so the pet Peace of Mind program kind of gives them some sort of hope that someone is going to help them on that path to help take care of their pet. It provides a non-threatening way to assist the patient or the caregiver. So many volunteers, I've gone to 3 different senior fairs in the last month because there's a lot of them right now. Fall is senior fair time and volunteer time. And people look at my table, and as warm as I am, they're like, I can't do that. I can't do that. Oh, what's that Pet Peace of Mind? What's that all about? Well, it's about taking care of the patient's pets. I can do that. And so there's still a stigma out there about hospice and end of life. It provides a relationship building opportunity for hospice staff and volunteers with patient and family. Helps with patients' unfinished business by planning for pet placement and keeps the patient and pet together. May reduce the impact of the financial burden. Eliminates the unintentional neglect of a pet. This program with our hospice, does offer financial help for our patients. The program itself requires that we have a advising veterinarian on our volunteer in our volunteer base in the program, and we do. And this veterinarian is in Rockford. The advising veterinarian does not need to be in the city and state. The advising veterinarian can confer with any of the veterinarians in the local area that the patient lives. So if the patient has a veterinarian, that you're taking the dog or the cat to here, our advising vet will call that vet, talk about what the program is going to offer, maybe discuss some of the financial burden that we would supplement to the patient. And that's all done by me, the volunteer coordinator, and the advising veterinarian with the patient's knowledge, okay? Because sometimes the patient doesn't have the financial means to take care of the pet, but we don't want that to be a deterrent, okay? Let's see. How will our hospice help? So with this program, every hospice is different. The program is nationwide, like I said, and it's based out of California, but all of the hospices that belong to the program can sort of tailor what their offerings are going to be based on their volunteers that come and what the volunteers can help offer as well. Okay, so the program is very flexible. The National Pet Peace of Mind Office gives me a framework, broad and wide, and then I put this into place in my hospice. I look for all the community resources. I do all the work to help offer as many services as possible for our patients. Okay, so what our ProMedicas of Rockford program offers is assistance with feeding and exercising of patients' pets. We partner with local food banks to make sure that we can get food at any time for any of our patients that need it for their pets. Exercising of patients' pets. Volunteers take pets for walks. They play with cats. If you want to sit and play with, toys, that's your thing, that's what we'll do. Address obvious medical needs. That would be, the veterinarian of the pet. And then, of course, our advising veterinarian would talk about ways that we can help with the program, to help them afford that. Provide placement resources for pets after the patient's death. Putting together a plan with the patient, for their pet. We have several resources for fostering and rehoming in all areas. This area I'm starting to build. And so someone like you, Jan, we talked about that in the beginning when she walked in. Jan belongs to Albert's Dog Lounge Rescue. And so that would be a partner that I would love to have in case a patient comes on and a dog needs to be, removed from the house at the end. Okay. Provide placement resources. Yes, foster homes, boarding, or pet sitting if patient is hospitalized or transferred to a facility. Routine veterinary care if need exists, or transportation to veterinarians, spaying and neutering. Emergency treatment due to accident or life-threatening conditions. Great volunteers are essential. Imagine that. Volunteers act as an extension of the patient's love and concern for their pet. The type of people that we're looking for, obviously, are the kind of people that are here today. You are here for a reason. You love pets. You have pets. You're interested in taking care of pets. And those are the kinds of people, that this program is good for. You can help us identify pet needs as they arise. Folks like you that even are experienced in taking care of other people's pets, you have kind of a sixth sense. So you can see things that we can't see when you're in the home. The clinical staff may not be paying attention to that pet and what's going on. Their focus is the patient, right? But the patient is suffering because the pet is being neglected. So you are the eyes and ears for that as a Pet Peace of Mind volunteer. Volunteer safety is always a priority. We'll talk about that, and that's part of proper training, okay? Ways that volunteers can help. Transporting pets to the vet or the groomer. Delivering pet food to patients, picking up pet food from donors. That's the biggest need of our patients. They just simply can't go out to do that anymore, okay? And so it would be like picking up from the local food bank and taking it over to the patient. Pet sitting and walking. Pet sitting would be in their home, unless you're comfortable with bringing the pet or the pet's used to traveling, but typically it's in the patient's home. Maybe the patient has to go to respite for a week because the caregiver needs a break, but the pet can't go to respite, so you would be checking on the patient's pet. Collaborating with community partners for fostering. Administrative help for the Pet Peace of Mind coordinator. Helping finding homes for pets. Before I go on, does anyone have any questions yet so far about anything that I've said? Yeah.
Is it just one vet in Rockford that's the?
It is. It just needs to be one vet. And they actually helped me put together also a catastrophic plan for animals in the event that, we take on a patient, and this happens many times, unfortunately. You take on a patient whose home is beyond a safe place for them to stay in. The patient, the pet, has been severely neglected. Maybe an option would have to be that the pet would need to be euthanized. It's not the goal, but we put together, the veterinarian helps me put together a plan for that, how we talk to the patient, how we talk to the patient's family about something like that, what we do in that process. So that's another thing that the veterinarian does. And the veterinarian for the patient's pet, they may have not seen that pet in 2 or 3 years. They don't have the last time they saw the pet, it was fully vaccinated, it was out running around, and now they're just as in shock as anyone else is, okay? So a pet peace of mind veterinarian has been trained. He knows the program, they understand, they can speak to that veterinarian in terms of what's gone on, maybe with the dog or animal, and that's how that all, how we put that all into place. Reasons to help patients with fostering or rehoming. Many pet owners do not have a plan. We talked about that. Many family members don't want that pet. As much as we all love our pets, or we love to go see, Rover when we go to our sister's or our mom's house, we don't want Rover. It might be that we all might have 2 or 3 and 4 pets. We can't take on another one. And so did mom put a plan in place? Nope. And you didn't know. Many pet owners do not have the resources or connections to plan for their pets. It takes a community of pet lovers to ensure that the pets are placed in new forever homes. The conclusion to this all and the goals that we have for this are that patient and pet care is always the primary goal, okay? Volunteers helping with care of the family pet may increase the quality of life for their patients and their caregivers as well. To be surrounded by pets that aren't being cared for and they feel responsible for that and guilty is horrible for their health. It's horrible. I mean, their depression is, it's more of a problem. So all of this plays into the part of caring for the patients at end of life. By acknowledging the importance of our patients' relationships with their pets, we affirm them as individuals. One of the things that we do when we train our volunteers to be a hospice volunteer is to always remember first that the patient is a person. They are a human being. They have thoughts and feelings till the very end. And how they feel about their pets is of primary concern. Pet Peace of Mind volunteering is a heartwarming way to help patients during end of life. And so I wanted to kind of just talk about hospice a little bit. Have any of you or all of you had any family members or on hospice or have experience with hospice at this point in your life? Some of you? Okay. Me too. I lost my mom in February, and she was on our service, and I don't know what I would have done without that, connection. Hospice is, just for the basics 101, hospice is when a terminal illness has been diagnosed with a person, and the statistical path of that terminal illness is within end of life in 6 months. It doesn't mean the person's going to die in 6 months. Medicare and Medicaid pay fully for hospice, 100%. Most private insurances now pay a good portion of hospice services. And people can be on hospice for a year, 2 years, 3 years, okay? They get recertified regularly by doctors, okay? And what their decline is managed. So that's a long time to be with a patient and their pet, and having the pet in the home not having any plan, or not having knowledge of where that pet's gonna go. And so for this program, for us to bring this on in 2020, it was huge because a lot of our volunteers were left without seeing the patients that they made connections with, yet we could still offer some sort of way for them to continue to help. And at this point in this, I'd like to kind of introduce one of our lead volunteers that helped with that program. She is a very personal, good friend of mine for many, many years. She's like a mom to me, really. And she has had the full range of experience with fostering, rehoming dogs. And she came on and said, I will do this. I will be the lead volunteer in this program for you. And it was a few things here and there that she did. It wasn't like a massive amount of animals that we had because it was new. And it was hard to get the program off the ground, really, in 2020. But she was there, and we did have a few people that we needed her for. And so I'd like to introduce you to Catherine Brown. Catherine, if you'd like to just come up and share a couple of experiences that you've had with the program.
Well, let me talk to you first about Murphy. Murphy came with me today. I was sitting here looking at my pants, and I've got Murphy's hair all over me. And so that shows that I'm a dog person. Murphy will turn 12 in November. He came to my husband and I as a foster dog because he had his family. The older man died. The woman went into a nursing home. So here's this dog. These people assumed their kids would take little Murphy. He was 6 years old at that time. Excuse me, border collie, very active, and they lived on a farm. So this dog is used to movement everywhere. Well, the kids said, I'm not having this dog. You know, they went along, yeah, Mom and Dad, we'll take care of the dog, just to give them, you know, that contentment, but they weren't planning on it. So dog goes into rescue, but he can't be fostered easily because of his nature. He was a farm dog, and he's used to running around chasing animals and whatever. So I live on a farm, and I'm in the foster system for the border collies, and he comes to live with us. And he's a prime example of a dog that ends up in limbo because the people have gone on to the next stage of life in nursing homes, or they're deceased, and nobody wants this dog. And so this kind of program takes care of this. Murphy was lucky that he was a purebred dog with papers, or he would have not made it through that system, even though he was only 6 years old. Now, Murphy's 12 now, and he's in his decline, but he's a happy dog because he gets to run around and chase things, and I will tell you, I have no gophers in my yard. Right. Okay. Now, the moral of the story is, if you're an old person, don't get a young dog, all right? Because in the fostering that I have done, we'll see these 6 or 8 year old dogs. Nobody wants to adopt a dog of 6 or 8 or 10 years old, particularly over 6. That's about the cut line. Because older dogs get expensive. They need this pill, they need that shot, they go to the vet, blah, blah, blah. So nobody wants them. Nobody wants to adopt them. And they still have a lot of life left, but they're considered kind of in the foster system because they're going to be fostered for a very long time. And so there is a gap in service. And a lot of older people who are in decline have dogs of this nature. So this program steps in to fill a gap. The other thing I'll say is that when my father was in a nursing home for 3 years, I would go visit him, and because he always wanted us to bring him food because he didn't like the nursing home food. And he was a very pampered man, so everybody brings him lunch, you know. So I go in there with my dog. That time, I had a therapy dog by the name of Dakota, and she was a little female border collie. And I would take her in there to visit him. And he would pet her up and everything. And then pretty soon, everybody, as I'm walking in the door, everyone has to come and pet the dog. And they all want to tell their dog story. Well, I had a dog that this, and I had a dog that did that. And oh, I remember my dog, and they want to tell me. So I stand there in the hallway listening for a 10-minute story about a dog. That's how important dogs are to people. And the fact that they got to pet a dog was marvelous. And she was cutely trained, so I ended up going in and doing about once a month a little show where they roll all these people in their wheelchairs and other people shuffle in and sit in their chairs, and the dog does her jump through the hoop and do circles and put her paw up and does all this kind of little thing that she did, cute little tricks. And then she would go around and greet every person. And she put herself there so they could pet her, just put her head there. And now if someone was just not very responsive or didn't have mobility, she would simply put her head next to them. And so she would acknowledge them. And if they brought in someone later, she would know that she had missed that person, and she would go touch that person. She's a border collie. She knows who is in her herd that day, all right? So she was very attentive. These people wanted the dog to come all the time. Can I bring the dog every week? The staff would ask, can I bring the dog every week? So all they wanted me to do, like once a month the show, but otherwise just walk the dog up and down the halls and stop in people's room, and so that they could have dog contact. Now, that's how important these pets are to people. They need that animal contact. And so when they are in their decline and they're in their home and they're in hospice care, what's going on with their animal is very significant to these people. And to know that there's someone who's supporting the pet as well as supporting them, that somebody has their eyes on that little dog, or somebody's looking out for the cat box, you know? Somebody's got to do the cat box, right? The nurse not going to do the cat box, all right? My dad always called her the bath lady. The bath lady comes, okay? The bath lady is not going to do the cat box. Yeah. So our volunteers then fill in that gap, and sometimes what they want is to talk about their pet, all right? And talk about when she was a puppy, you know, or when that first little kitty came. So the interaction about the pet is also important. So this is a quality of life issue for people who are in end stage of their life. And part of what people do at that phase is sort of think about their life journey. There's a lot of that review of life path that goes on inside of a person. And so talking about the dog they had when they were 12, or the dog they had when they raised their kids. Those kind of conversations are part of their coming to peace with their life. Because, you know, all of us have things to celebrate in our life, and we have things we are regretful of in our life. And so people do this life journey review is part of that process, and the pet is often a significant element of that. And people can tell you, well, I had this dog, and then I had this dog, and then later we had a poodle. What was that poodle's name? Okay, so that's all an important part of their interaction as they come to terms with, I've lived, and now I'm coming to the end. And you know, my husband died in December, and interesting that his two dogs, the one of which I still have, the other one has passed on also. Both of these dogs are pretty old. They were present when he was dying. They were right there. One was next to the bed, the other was actually on the bed next to kind of by his legs. And they were very present. And you know, if he was gone someplace, those dogs would look for him. After he passed, they knew. They knew. That we don't give them enough credit for understanding what is happening with the person. So my thought is that most of these pets know their person is having this leaving life experience. That I don't know if they could, how they understand it, because I don't get inside a dog's head, other than I want to go out and I want to play and I want to eat. You know, I get that. But they are connected in such a way to their person that there is that understanding and the interaction. And I really believe that having his dogs right next to him was such a comfort to him as he left this world and made his way on. So I can't think that anything more to say about this particular thing. But when, about going into people's homes about pets. One of the cases that we worked on early on, there was there's all, you know, I don't know about my family's dysfunctional. I don't know about yours. You know, we have, just on the three. I mean, I know there's
Hand
worse.
raise, hand up.
Partially why
Yeah.
we're here.
Yeah.
Animals are so much easier.
Yeah,
Thank
I forgot
you.
to mention
Yes.
the credentials of my friend. She has a PhD in psychology. So she
Yeah.
is, as you could probably tell by the way she speaks. So I never give her
Yeah.
enough credit.
I was a psychologist for
Years.
34 years, I think. So where was I? All right, so my family's dysfunctional. We have our in-laws and our outlaws. And I have my favorite people and the ones that, are we really related?
Yeah.
You know, this must be by marriage or something. And, you know, and when we work with these families, there's all these family dynamics pop up where there's 2 or 3 dogs in the house. One of them belongs to a son or a daughter who's sort of housing their pet with the older parents, all right? I don't know why, you know, because people take on a pet not realizing that this is like having a child almost. And so then you have the whose pet is whose, and who pays for what, and who's going to do what, and are we as hospice volunteers authorized to do something with all 3 of these dogs, or do we have to get a special dispensation on the one that belongs to somebody else? And then that person, the parent who's passing on, thinks, well, you know, my daughter's going to take care of my dog because I'm taking care of her dog now, right? Don't assume that, all right? And so there's all these little dynamics to sort through, and that's part of the coming to terms. And the organization helps sort that out a great deal, all right? The other thing that Pam does is when a person is getting, you know, closer to the end, sometimes the pet has to be then placed somewhere. And they go into a foster situation, and she takes pictures of the pet and makes a beautiful collage of the photos of these pets so that they have that to keep with them, even if the pet had to move on to another placement. And when they know that their pet is in a secure and loved place, they are much more accepting of it than just, my pet will go somewhere when I'm gone, who knows, right? They know that that part's handled. That's one less thing to weigh on their mind. Because everybody's afraid of the pound, you know, going through the pound. Yeah. Now in Rock County, we have a no-kill shelter, all right? And I know that because somebody dumped off a beautiful dog in my neighborhood a couple of weeks ago. And of course, any lost dog out there, where do they bring it? So everybody knows I do a dog foster. So we actually found a home for her, but we didn't. So she didn't have to go to the pound, but I was in conversation with them about how to handle this, you know, in terms of their space and their resources. So there are a lot of assumptions that people make about, my dog will just die when I die. We're going to go together. I've heard that one a bunch of times. Well, if your dog is still chasing the ball around, it's not the time for them to leave this world, all right? You may have the comforting thought that the dog's going to go with me, all right, when I move on to the next world, but that isn't necessarily how it's going to go, all right? Or my family will take care of my dog. They know how much I love her. That's another assumption. So you have to sort of sort through that, and that's where Pam comes in terms of facilitating, helping
Have those difficult conversations.
the hard conversations to facilitate that decision making, and it takes time. It may take a month to make a month of conversations for that to happen. It isn't a quick thing. It's very much a process. So the volunteers are a key part of that, noticing and reporting in, oh, there's this issue or there's that issue, so that Pam can deal with that.
And Catherine deals with it too.
Yes.
She's the lead.
I can deal with it.
We pass it back and forth.
Yes, yes.
Depending upon the relationship that we build with the family. So.
And I don't know one thing about cats, so that's Pam's department.
Yeah, that is my department. I'll take the mic back though.
Okay.
Are you done?
I'm done.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions about that? I've got a few things, kind of semantic things to go over, because I'm sure you're wondering you know, well, what's it take to be a volunteer? You know, what does that require? What's, you know, what do you do? How do I do this? Anything that you can think of before I tell you that part?
Well, it sounds like rather than taking the volunteer taking the dog into her or his home, it's like the opposite, where you go somewhere else to take care of it, basically.
Yeah.
And
So
visit and take care of it.
yeah. So it depends upon the type of volunteer that comes on. If you already have fostering and rehoming experience yourself, like Catherine does, she has a 30-acre farm. She has the space and 40-acre.
Well, you should have a whole passel of dogs out there.
She's had. It just depends on the type of volunteer that comes on. And so, like Catherine says, if you know, a lot of it falls on me sometimes for the conversations to have with the patients. Sometimes those conversations can be held by a volunteer who's well equipped to do that because they've had experience. And so I tailor it, you know, we tailor it to the volunteer's abilities, okay? Capabilities. If you say you want to volunteer, you're comfortable with, and this is something that ProMedica has always been very good about, is a flexible volunteering opportunity. We never take volunteers on and say, this is how you have to do it, this is what you're gonna do, this is what I need. It's all about the volunteer and how they want to participate, okay? We get volunteers that say, I'm not doing cat litter. It's just something I can't do, I'm just not doing it, okay? So you have to understand that volunteers sometimes have their own, you know, way of doing things. But yes, in this particular program, I have found through experience that most volunteers would be better off taking or helping take the pet to a resource that will do the rehoming and the fostering, okay? I've tried. I've done the, oh, this volunteer used to foster, so they went and fostered an animal. And then things went wrong, okay?
Albert's Dog Lodge would be an incredible resource for
Right.
because that's what they do.
We're a hospice company. I'm not a fosterer or a rehomer.
We get a lot of owner surrenders from people who are going into nursing homes or
Yeah.
pass or.
Yeah. And I mean, it just depends on my volunteer base, you know? I mean, if I was able to recruit 10 volunteers that were fosterers and rehomers, well, now I'm in the fostering and rehoming business. but I'm not in that position, and I'm gonna be honest with you. I'm very good at the liaison with my resources. I am good at building community resources. I will find all the places in this community that will help me out, and then I will give you that list, and then you as a volunteer can help me be the liaison. I'm in Rockford, you're here, the patient is here. You know where Albert's place is. So you pick up a dog, you know her, you're gonna take it to the Albert's place, and you're gonna tell me that's what you did, and I'm gonna oversee it from Rockford, right? So this is kind of how that works from a perspective in the community where I'm not sitting, okay? So part of becoming a volunteer for hospice, there's a little bit of a process involved, as you can imagine. This is a fun part. Get ready. It's an orientation. It's a couple of hours of going through things. But what's nice about being a Pet Peace of Mind volunteer is you don't have to do all of the major stuff that we do with friendly visit volunteers on the healthcare side. You're what we call an administrative volunteer, okay? Unless you want to sit with a patient, unless you want to sit in their home and visit with them for an extended amount of time, then we would put you through a different orientation because it's very different to speak to them in terms of where they're at in their end-of-life journey versus speaking to them and talking about their pets, right? And it might overcross. You can't you know, if you decide you're going to go there and spend a little bit of time with them, it might benefit me to orient you as a friendly visit volunteer so that you can understand what that looks like as you are taking care of their pets. I will tell you that Catherine came on as a friendly visit volunteer because I knew she was the lead for this program, but she would be spending some time, some quality time with those patients and those family members as she helps me determine where to put those animals, because she was my foster or rehomer, you know, liaison, really, okay? But if you say to me, I really would just like to, I'm volunteering somewhere else, I would really just like to devote a couple of hours a week, and I'm at the ready to drop off food or take a pet to the vet, and that's all I want to do, that's an administrative volunteer. You're not spending a lot of time with the patient. That's a different orientation. I don't have to require you then to go get a 2-step TB test, a physical, a fingerprinting. There's a lot involved in being a hospice volunteer, okay? You know, you're touching people's lives. You are in the realm of HIPAA, okay? So there's privacy, there's confidentiality information that, you know, you would be seeing. You still are. You're going to see who they are, where they live. So there are some protocols we need to talk about and how I teach you, you know, to keep that stuff confidential. So you are kind of under that realm, but I don't need to put you through the heavy, you know, protocols that require like a physical and a TB test. You're not going to need that if you're just picking up an animal and dropping it off, you know. You're picking up the dogs to walk them for the day and dropping them back off, okay? If that's something that that's comfortable for you, and you know, it's an easy orientation, that's an easy onboarding process, you know. If you find that you're going to get connected to the patient, you know, that you're going to get involved in their life, or you're going to have, you know, I'd need to do a little bit more with you, okay? So
It's not that big a deal.
it isn't that big a deal.
It doesn't sound like it's a.
No, but it's just a few other things to do. No, it's not.
It's no big deal.
Yeah.
It's very simple.
Is,
done it.
what if you find you are getting kind of, you know, like, is that something you can change from the administration to wanting more
Sure.
hospice
Yep.
practice?
Yep.
Yep, okay.
Yep, if that's something that you would like to do more of, that's great. I always need friendly visit volunteers in this area. I have one in the Janesville area. I had another one. I had a pet therapy volunteer, and Catherine talked about that a little bit with her taking Dakota. If you have a pet that's certified, which is a quick certification class anywhere at PetSmart.
Is that through Pet Partners, by chance? Pet Partners, therapy? I don't know about that.
So the requirement for that is just a behavioral class. Yep, through any place that you know of up here. We have what's called TDI, which is Therapy Dog International. That's a huge organization that you can get certified. It's rather expensive. It's the high-end program. And then we have a place in Beloit called Miss Christie's. It's a 7-week class. It's very reasonable. She does training for our volunteers all the time that want to have their pets certified. And then those volunteers, I used to have one, and she's currently has, as we all do, you know, she's got some family things that she's dealing with, you know, so she can't help me right now. But those are people that take their dog to the facilities, take them to see all of our patients. We have patients up here in every facility, Willow Wick, Oak Park Place, Rock Haven, Huntington Place. We have patients, I have probably close to 75 patients up here in this area in Beloit that I have one volunteer for. It's very sad. I can't, you know, so that's why I'm here. One of the ways to volunteer is Pet Peace of Mind. But we have several other ways. You know, administrative volunteers that do just paperwork at home. But friendly visit volunteers are more what I need. I always need someone to visit our patients. And friendly visits are, you just go in, you know, you sit with them, you keep company, play cards, read a book, watch a show together, you know. The volunteer I have up here currently is a young lady. She's in CNA school, and she just wants to volunteer. So here she is caring for patients during the day. Actually, she's in school, working, and then goes afterwards for more. She can't get enough. You know, she likes elderly people.
She's young.
She is young. I will tell you what, she is very ambitious. This girl, she's something else. But I come up and I do the orientation for you here. You don't have to come to Rockford. I make it very easy for you. We meet at the Panera Bread, at the coffee shop, whatever, wherever's convenient for you. So.
Or the library.
Or the library.
There you go.
Maureen would,
For that.
Maureen would graciously give me some space.
We would.
Thank you,
We have
Maureen.
Space for that stuff. But I'm curious, we're talking about therapy dogs and the training for
Sure.
that.
Sure.
Are there therapy cats? Because I have the sweetest kitty, and I've always thought he should be a therapy kitty.
Yeah, we get asked about that all the time, and it's a very rare situation that you find a cat that is so easygoing with many people, that's not independent, that doesn't go on their own way. We know how cats are, and people want cats, so this has to be a cat that you can pick up, you can lay it down on their bed, and the cat just snuggles with the person, every time. And that's a rarity. So do we have one? Nope. I wish I had.
Well,
Listen,
yeah, and I've
yeah.
never even heard of training, but
You
Gus is so unusual. I mean, he meets people at the door. Now,
Oh,
he
yeah.
doesn't anymore. He's 20
Yep.
years old, and he's deaf, and he's half blind, and bless his little heart. But even when he was a young kitty, he
Yeah.
would meet people at the door.
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm so happy to see you. Oh
Yeah.
my gosh, he was worse than our lab.
That says a lot.
Meeting
Yeah.
people at the
Yeah.
door, so.
I
was
wish
so-
we did.
yeah.
We had a cat like that too. His name was Hugo, and he loved everyone. He rolled around. He didn't care who came to the house, and the animals too. And you know, they sometimes have to be okay with other animals. I mean, you need to bring this cat into a facility, and someone's walking with a therapy dog. We can't have a chaotic event. So it's difficult to find a cat. It really is.
I have a cat like that. His name is Milo. I call him, my cat Luna, she passed away. She was my Walmart greeter, so he kind of picked up the reins. But when I open the door, I see fuzzy heads. And as a few of them have passed on, other ones have picked up the reins, and they meet me there, and I've got 8. And probably at any given time, 6 or 7 of them are at the door
Oh,
when I get home every night.
yeah.
So, but
And they've learned from each other.
They do, and
Mhm.
Milo's a really good cat. He's like, his motto is, I want to get along. He just wants to be everybody's friend. And when I fostered or brought in a rescue that I've taken in from outside and it's like, I'm going to go find a home, he's the first one that wants to go. I let him meet that new cat
Yeah.
first because he wants to welcome
Isn't
him
that
in.
something?
And, yeah, he's that way, and he's just really even-tempered and doesn't have a hissy fit. He's been around dogs and other
Yeah.
cats, and every time I bring someone in, he's the first one that wants to go in and meet him.
That's sweet.
So it's pretty
It
cool.
is a rarity.
It's pretty cool.
I'm also curious about, hospice oftentimes tries to keep the person in their home if possible.
Yeah.
But sometimes it's not possible.
Correct.
And there are hospice facilities
Mhm.
where that's all they do, and then there's nursing homes.
Right.
But, so what if the person has a dog and you're their volunteer,
Mhm.
and then we find out that they're going to have to go into one of the facilities, they're just not able to be cared for at home anymore,
Right.
or a nursing facility of some sort. Is there a way then that the dog could still visit, even if it's in a foster home or they're looking to rehome it? Because,
Yeah.
just because there's another time when.
Sure. Because they don't want to miss the connection, but
Right.
inevitably they're separated.
I mean, have you ever had anything like that where?
So I haven't experienced that yet in this program in the couple years I've been in it. But my plan would be that if that was to occur, when we talk to the patient or the patient's family about them moving to the facility, and the animal we've put a plan in place, whether that is rehoming or fostering. Either of those choices We would have to, the new place, the new fosterer, the new home or the parent, you know, would have to maybe be on board with bringing that animal to the facility. And that's, you know, the fosterer might be, because of their nature and how they work and what they do, may be a little more open to that than maybe the person who's taking the dog now for their own. You know, so we would have to talk about that. That'd have to be a discussion. And then we, you know, I would work with the liaison that we have in the community that's going to foster, explain to them that this is what we're looking for. So fostering might be the answer for a while until that patient passes, then rehoming, right? Then setting up, because the likelihood of maybe a new owner coming and taking the dog back to see the old, you know, it's I'm not going to say it wouldn't happen, but it's going to take some conversation. It's going to take some, you know, the right people, right? So, but that is why, you know, we get involved, and that's why we love the program so much, that we, and the national office gives us all sorts of support for things like that. I don't know what it's going to happen, so I call them, has this happened? And they're in, you know, Pet Peace of Mind is in 50 states, hundreds of hospices. They have all of that feedback from all of those volunteer coordinators, and they'll let me, if I have questions, they'll say, this person they have a really big hospice in Ohio where they have a ton of Pet Peace of Mind volunteers. She's more than willing to tell you about some of those experiences and how they've worked and how they've not worked. So I have a great bank of information, but myself, have I dealt with it? No. But it's always like anything.
It takes a lot of communication and working at it.
And who contacts you? Does the hospice contact you for services, or do like individual people who have somebody?
Oh, how do I get a referral for this? Okay, all right. So I am the volunteer coordinator for hospice, right? So I work in the hospice admin office in ProMedica in Rockford. Okay, hospice is a service, right, that goes out to the patient. Okay, so what happens is the patient comes on our service. The admitting nurse or social worker is usually the avenue of the referral. And all of our social workers are on board with our program, and they understand how it is to give me the referral. We have paperwork and everything that goes in their admission packet. So when they meet with the family and they meet with the patient, they talk to them about volunteer services. They mention that there's this program. They notice the Rover sitting in the corner, right? It's all they have to do is just see if there's a pet there, and then they let me know. How I find out is, and I would kind of tell you this a little bit when you are in orientation, but I'll tell you now. So every the volunteer program is one of like 6 disciplines of hospice, okay? There's nurse, CNA, volunteers, social workers, spiritual care coordinators, bereavement coordinators, art therapy, music therapy, and massage therapy. So now we're at like 9, okay? Every one of these staff members knows about this program, every one of them. And every 2 weeks, this interdisciplinary group, we call it IDG, meets on every single patient we have on our service. So I sit in a 4-hour meeting every 2 weeks for my 75 or 85 patients that I cover in my area. Our office is broken up into 4 different teams that cover different areas of service, right? And I know this is long and involved, but I want to explain to you. So that's when we talk about all of our patients' plan of care. And this program is part of their plan of care, okay? If they have a dog, Pet Peace of Mind is sitting there waiting for the referral. Does the dog need care? Do they need food? Do they need walking? I ask that in every meeting. No, the dog's fine, the family's taking care, they have a plan for the dog. Okay, great, but the next one might not. So every patient that comes on our service, we go through and do the inventory of what's in the house, who's in the house, you know, how do we take care of the patient fully, okay? So that's how I get my referral. And then I call if it's somebody in Janesville, then I call my Pet Peace of Mind volunteer here, which is 0. It would be Catherine, actually. She's in Beloit. So I say to her, Catherine, would you be willing to go to, Janesville and meet with this patient's family? And sometimes I go with. A lot of times I do. Because the program is still new, it's easier for me to kind of explain, what we do. And so that's how it works. That's how you get the call. Any
And
other
there is
questions?
at least one other hospice here in Janesville that has the same program.
I think
How
it's
exactly they work
Is
it,
that Mercy
I
Health?
think it's Mercy.
It could be Mercy, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm
remember
not,
that
there
one
could
a
be
few years
others
ago.
because there are.
It's
quite a
Mercy.
few.
It's Mercy Health.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
it is.
so,
It is
It is Mercy Health, yeah. Mercy Health has their own hospice, so they don't utilize our services.
Right,
They have their
do
own.
they, I thought years ago they did have, because I looked into it, a pet thing too?
Well,
similar
yeah,
to this?
I talked with somebody from Mercy and it's apparently the same program.
It's the same program.
But,
So is
but
it
of course,
still
like
up-
she said, you guys can
We
work
can
it,
customize, yeah, so their
customize it,
offerings
that's
may
it.
be different.
So exactly
It
how
just
they do it, I
depends.
don't know.
Right.
But I did want to mention that this is, when she says it's nationwide, it really is.
Yeah, it partners with any hospice. So any hospice in everywhere can be a part of this program. It just depends on how big they are. So we are, and how they can service, their patients if they have enough volunteers that are interested. Okay, so we are the ProMedica Hospice, formerly Heartland Hospice, is the largest in the northern Illinois and coverage area of the southern part of Wisconsin. We are the largest hospice now. So we have anywhere from, well, we don't really like to discuss how many patients we have on our service at any given time, but we have staffing probably 150 at least hospice workers in the area that covers 8 or 9 counties. So, like when I say I have 65 to 75 patients, I mean, how many of those patients do you think have pets? Probably a lot of them, most of them. So I have a huge gap in service here.
Do you ever do presentations via Zoom?
So I did for a while in 2020 with my volunteers, but this is my first presentation I've done with this program ever.
Well, our director, of course, she works from home, but
Mhm.
I mean, she lives, our rescue's actually based in Whitewater, which is Walworth County.
Yeah, and
But
we don't cover
have
Walworth.
volunteers clear up into northern Wisconsin and
Sure.
down into Illinois, and this area, of course.
Right.
But they're not going to come to the Janesville Library during the work week when they have kids.
Sure.
You know?
And so
That's
if
what
I was,
I don't
yeah.
know if she'll want to be part of it.
Sure.
I'm here to tell her. That's for
Yeah.
sure. Yeah.
So I have some information on the back table. I have brochures about volunteering for hospice, about volunteering for Pet Peace of Mind. I have applications back there, and my card is in every brochure.
Okay, good.
Okay.
Right.
And so you can get a hold of me that way.
I guess I was thinking of maybe this kind of presentation where
Yeah.
people, because they don't even know what it is.
I know. So I'd be more than willing to, do a presentation anywhere if I could get, if there's a decent amount of people there to, and this is fine.
And Appleton and
So-
3-4 hours away.
So let me explain a little bit. So ProMedica Senior Health, we're in 28 different states. And so my business unit covers 9 counties, all right? So ProMedica Senior Health's business unit up in Green Bay, they would be the ones that would do that. Like the volunteer coordinator up there would do the presentation. I can't step
I'm
into
thinking
her
more
area.
in terms of the people that might take a dog
Mhm.
after the person passes
Sure.
to foster
Yeah.
within Alberts. We would
Okay.
have people that,
Oh, sure. And so, as far as fostering the dog outside of my coverage area, that's totally possible. I mean, animals can go anywhere, right? It doesn't have to be in my hospice coverage area.
right, we've got
Yeah.
an elaborate system of
Yeah.
transport.
So I had a German Shepherd that we had rehomed. Do you remember that? Because I don't know if you were involved in that one. I called my community liaison in Rockford, which is Care for Pets. And she's a wonderful liaison for me. And she knows she knows people outside of the state because they get dogs and cats coming in and out all over the place. And she said, I have someone at the German Shepherd Rescue in Barrington or wherever it was. You know, there was one in Chicago at the time. She said, I already have someone that wants that dog. And that dog was in a car in the week and went up to there, and that was it. And this patient is still on our service. He had 3 dogs that he and his wife could not, his wife and him were on our service. And his wife, it was a strange thing. He came on before her. She came on service and died within a few months. He's still on our service, and he has 1 dog. He absolutely could not handle that German Shepherd. He had a very small home, and that German Shepherd's huge, and it needed a place to run and play, and it didn't have that there. The home was very, very, very poorly taken care of. It was really just needed to be condemned. The animals weren't being taken out, so if that tells you anything, all 3 animals doing their business in the house. It was a horrifying experience. So Stephanie came in. She sees this all the time, care for pets all the time. She came in, found homes for all 3, and he said, I am absolutely not giving up my Susie. I forget what her name is. I'm looking at her right now. That dog wouldn't leave his side. And if you came near him, she was like, I mean, she was, and then the other 2 dogs were just trying to fit in. And the German Shepherd and the Chihuahua. And that Chihuahua was found a home immediately. Everyone loves those dogs. That German Shepherd went away within a week, and then I got the picture coming back to me, showing me in 6 months how wonderful that dog was. He had gained 40 pounds. The dog was emaciated. 40 pounds, healthy, running around, having a wonderful life. And the little Chihuahua, that dog went off. I don't even know. I haven't heard anything, but I saw the picture of the family, and there was kids, and they loved the dog.
What is that organization you said you connected to? Care for Pets?
Care for Pets, it's called.
It's a shelter or a...
They are everything. They have partnered with the Winnebago County Animal Shelter in Rockford. Yeah, so that's their shelter that they utilize, right? And that's a no-kill shelter, a true no-kill shelter. Yeah, so she works with them, but then she goes outside of county too, if she can, to foster a dog out. You know, those places are all over the place, right? So
She probably knows that.
I'm sure she does. Stephanie knows everyone.
Right.
So all of that is in the back table. There's an application back there that you'll take and fill out for me. Please take a volunteer brochure and a Pet Peace of Mind brochure too. But I would love to just have, if anything, just your contact information. There's a sheet back there. Even if it's not something you want to do now. If it's something that you thought about, I could touch base with you in a few months or something just to see if you were thinking about it more, any questions I could answer. But I'd love to stay in touch if that's something that you really would like to do. Great.
Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
So
Yeah,
great.
this is
Oh,
great.
Yeah.
thank you.